October 13th, 1806. Outside the city of Jena, armies are gathering. The next morning, Prussia will suffer one of the most decisive defeats in its history. Inside the city, a philosopher is rushing to finish a manuscript that may not survive the coming battle. That philosopher is Hegel. Late that day, he watches Napoleon ride through Jena on reconnaissance and writes to his friend Needhammer that he has seen this world soul riding through the city on horseback. The remark has become famous because it sounds mystical, but I think we often misunderstand what Hegel is actually doing. We read the phrase world soul and imagine a philosopher projecting metaphysics onto a military commander. Yet, the operation taking place is far more familiar than that. Ordinary people in 1806 needed some framework to metabolize Napoleon. Folk historical narrative was already doing proto-Hegelian work before Hegel theorized it. Soldiers, peasants, clergy were all already sorting, is this man an essential turning point of history or just a contingent disaster?
My reading of Hegel is guided less by a desire to understand his terminology than by a desire to understand the operation his terminology is trying to expose. We often approach the phenomenology of spirit as if it were an esoteric machine populated by strange entities, the one, the also, force, understanding, accessible only to specialists. I think this is a mistake. What interests me is not the vocabulary itself, but the underlying movement of cognition that the vocabulary attempts to render visible. This is why I have suggested the notion of a folk phenomenology, analogous to folk psychology. Before any formal phenomenological method exists, ordinary human beings already possess an implicit practical grasp of how experience, meaning, and normativity work. To navigate a world shared with others, we constantly sought what is essential from what is accidental, what belongs to the object from what belongs to our perspective, what is stable from what is contingent. We do not learn this first from philosophy. Philosophy merely makes explicit something already at work in everyday life. Hegel himself points directly to this point when discussing perception. These empty abstractions of singularity and of the universality opposed to it are the powers whose play is the perceptual understanding, often called healthy common sense. That healthy common sense, which takes itself to be solid, real consciousness, is, in perceiving, only the play of these abstractions. Section 131, page 78. The significance of this passage is that Hegel locates the movement not in philosophers, but in ordinary consciousness itself. What common sense takes to be straightforward contact with reality is already a process of organization, differentiation, and eidetic sorting. Consciousness is constantly negotiating between unity and multiplicity, between what belongs to the thing and what merely accompanies it. The transition from perception to understanding marks the moment when this implicit operation begins to become visible to itself. As Hegel writes, this unconditioned universal, which is henceforth the true object of consciousness, is still an object of consciousness. Consciousness has not yet grasped its concept as concept. Section 132, page 79.
This is the aspect of Hegel that seems most relevant today. The point is not that he discovered a mysterious metaphysical realm hidden behind appearances. Rather, he slowed down in operation, that every competent language user already performs. A child learning the difference between the cup is hot and the cup is red is already participating in the same movement. The distinction between the essential and the contingent, between what belongs to the thing and what depends on circumstances, is already there before any explicit theory of essence exists. My interpretation, therefore, is that Hegel is not primarily describing a historical sequence of philosophical doctrines. He is making visible a structure of ordinary cognition that usually remains transparent to itself. Hegel's project and the project of a folk phenomenology converge. Both seek to expose the unnoticed operations through which human beings already make sense of themselves, of others, and of the world. On Hegel's model, consciousness does not need a richer framework handed to it from outside. The instability is already built into ordinary perceiving. The fact that the same object presents itself through perspectives that cannot be reconciled without the mediation of space is already pushing consciousness toward more explicit structure, whether philosophy arrives to name it or not. Later, understanding discovers a similar pressure at a higher level. It finds itself relating appearances through increasingly complex structures in order to resolve how competing determinations can belong to the same object. What first appeared as a stable thing gradually reveals itself as the product of relations that perception alone cannot adequately articulate. The transition is therefore not driven by an external theory, but by the inability of a given grammar to sustain the very content it seeks to describe.